First, I'd like to thank you for your service to Jesus Christ as an acolyte here at St. Mark's Episcopal Church in East Longmeadow. An acolyte is a person assisting the celebrant or the priest in a religious service. There are several acolyte positions, but all of the positions follow the same basic guidelines. First, serve when you're assigned and be prompt. You'll be scheduled to serve at least once a month. Sometimes it may be a little more often than that. Make sure that you don't have any conflicts, mark up your calendar for those Sundays, and make sure you are able to be here when you're assigned. Now, all of us have conflicts that come up now and then. If you do have a conflict on the day assigned, it's your responsibility to find a replacement. Once you find a replacement, please notify the parish office at office@stmarksma.org and CC the verger. That's also the fancy word we have for the head acolyte that makes the schedule. Secondly, be vested properly and on time. We ask ideally that you arrive 30 minutes before the service. Vestments are an alb, also known as a robe, worn by clergy or by acolytes during the service. All vestments are kept in the vestment room, right next to Father Peter's office. You will wear a robe and a cincture. That's a church word for a long white rope that's worn with a slip knot to the left side of your body. Robes should hang at the top of your shoes, and you should dress nicely. Choose appropriate shoes. Can you spot the properly dressed acolyte? How about the proper shoes? It's our responsibility to each other to make sure that we're all properly dressed, so help each other out if something is out of place. You'll be asked to process and recess at the beginning and the end of the service. When we process into the church, it's at a slow and steady pace, with your head up, singing the hymn as you are able. Can you spot the proper way to process and the proper way to recess? During a typical Sunday service, there are usually two acolyte positions. A crucifer, who is the person who carries the cross or the crucifix in the procession, and a server, which is the person who carries the gospel book. In an ideal world, we would have 3 acolytes. 1 would be a crucifer and 2 would be servers. There are also times when we have 4 acolytes, 1 crucifer, 2 servers, and 1 gospel book holder. We'll show you how 2 acolytes do a service. It's important for you to understand what position you are preparing to do and how you take part in that position. Let's go ahead and look at each one of these positions and explain the duties and expectations. All acolytes should make sure that the candles on the altar and near the altar are lit by at least 10 minutes before the service. During the season of Easter, they should also make sure that the Paschal candle is lit. All the candles near the baptismal font should be lit with a candle lighter. After the final hymn, all acolytes will use the snuffers and extinguish the candles at the altar, around the baptismal font, and during the season of Easter, at the Paschal candle as well. For those of you playing along at home, the Paschal candle is the really tall one. The crucifer will carry the crucifix or the cross that stands in the back of the church to lead the procession. They should walk in a slow and stately manner down the aisle all the way to just behind the piano. They don't bow when they pass the altar. Ultimately, they should place the cross and the holder on the back wall, right near the exit door. During the recession, as we leave the church, you will lead everyone out. From the altar to the back of the church, to the end of the service. You walk at a slightly quicker pace than you did when you entered the church. Slow in, steady out. At the conclusion of the service, please return the cross to its holder in the door right by the Founder's Room in the Great Hall. Then go to the vestment room, remove your vestments, and hang them in the appropriate place in the vesting room. Servers have the largest amount of responsibility. So let's go ahead and go over those responsibilities now. During the procession, when there's just one of you, you will carry in the gospel book into the church, following behind the Crucifer. You will approach the altar, place the gospel on the altar, and then go to the left of the priest, and you will bow in unison with the priest and proceed to your seat. You'll sit down to the left of the altar in the seat closest to the priest. During the hymn prior to the gospel reading, make sure you wait for the go-ahead from the priest so that you know when to proceed to the altar. Get the altar book. You'll carry the gospel book in an elevated position to the center of the aisle. Hold the book towards the priest. The priest will take the book, open it, and hand it back for you. You'll hold it steady during the reading. After the gospel, process back to the altar, holding the gospel book up high, and place the gospel on the altar. During the offering, you're responsible for assisting the priest in setting table for Holy Communion. The first thing to do is give the priest the main chalice with the purificator, the pall, and the corporal. Then go back to your seat and wait for the ushers to come up, bringing forward the bread and the wine. Once the bread and the wine have been brought to the table, you head over to the credence table, take the lavabo bowl and the towel from the credence table, and stand at the side of the stage. The priest will bring you a cruet, a small glass container of water. You'll pour water onto the celebrant's hands into the bowl. The priest will then take the purificator from you and dry his hands. Once he's done that and hung that towel back over your arm, place the lavabo bowl and the towel back on the credence table. Be seated. Watch the priest for any cues in case they need assistance with special items such as reserved sacrament. When the breaking of bread song starts playing, take the glass chalice and the purificator and pick it up off of the credence table and bring it over to the altar, placing it near the consecrated bread. At the end of communion, wait at the side of the raised altar area for the priest to bring you the offering basket, the chalices, and any other items that are on the altar that should not be there at the end of the service. Take those items and place them on the credence table one at a time in an orderly fashion. Every time the priest gives you an item, bow, and the priest will bow to you. Then walk towards the table and return. During the recessional hymn, walk to the altar. Take the gospel book, raise it in the air, and follow the cross slowly out of the church. You may leave the gospel book on the table right outside of the sanctuary in the Great Hall. The celebrant will say a closing prayer and then dismiss the congregation. Then go to the vestment room, remove your vestments, and hang them in the appropriate place in the vesting room. On those Sundays when we have 4 acolytes serving, at the end of the service, you'll also go, take the torches, and follow the cross out. Now, during special services like Easter and Christmas, there are a few added acolyte positions that we want you to be aware of. If you're assigned to those positions, you'll receive special instruction, either before the service a few days in advance, or maybe just 20 minutes before the service. No matter what, we'll give you special instructions. In most positions, you'll be prompted into action by the priest. So just relax. Have fun. Should you have a question, even during the service, don't be afraid to ask. Before you know it, you'll be like a pro. Thank you for your service to God and to St. Mark's.